book of Genesis holds secrets that extend far beyond what most people realize. Woven between tales of creation, sprawling family trees, and sacred agreements, lies a nearly forgotten story. A massive war that shook the world back in Abraham's time. Imagine the scene. 4 kings, each leading powerful nations, marching together to confront an seemingly impossible foe, an army of 10,000 giants. Could these have been the Nephilim, the legendary offspring of fallen angels, mentioned in ancient writings and feared by early humans? Who were these kings, anyway? What civilizations were bold enough to engage in such a huge conflict? And perhaps most intriguing of all, why was this war erased from human memory and left out of historical accounts? The answer is even more incredible than you might think. Ancient texts tell of 3 distinct types of giants, each with unique strengths, appearances, and abilities. These colossal beings, said to tower over ordinary men, would have been the last living echoes of a bygone era. Are you ready to discover how this battle played out and the mysteries it hides in the shadows of the past? Then get ready for an amazing journey. Like this video, share it with your friends, and leave your thoughts in the comments, so more people can learn about this story that has been lost to time. The truth is about to be revealed, and it could change everything you thought you knew about where humanity comes from. A colossal event lost in the mists of time. A war of unimaginable size fought in the days of Abraham when powerful kings and entire armies clashed in a conflict whose echo still seems to resonate through the pages of eternity. But there is something few realize. This wasn't just a simple war between people. Behind the spears and shields, something far greater, something gigantic, was happening. Chapter 14 of the book of Genesis tells us about this incredible event, a clash between 4 kings and 5. But beneath this seemingly political and territorial story lies a hidden and disturbing truth. This war also involved a legion of 10,000 giants, massive beings whose existence challenges traditional explanations of history. Who were these kings who dared to challenge forces beyond human understanding? What civilizations stood behind such a vast coalition of power? And who were these giants? These monstrous beings who fought and fell upon the ancient plains. Where did they come from? And what became of them after the battle ended? Now, let's delve into this mysterious account together, Genesis 14, where, between the lines of the sacred text, lies the record of a forgotten war. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Ellasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shernab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zor. All these were joined together in the valley of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shave Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir, as far as Elparan on the edge of the wilderness. Then they turned back and went to En-Mishpat, that is, Kadesh, and defeated all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites who were dwelling in Hazazon Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is, Zor, went out, and they drew up for battle in the valley of Siddim against Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of nations, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Ellasar, for kings against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of bitumen pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some fell into them, and the rest fled to the hill country. So they took all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions, and went their way. They also took Lot, Abram's nephew, who was dwelling in Sodom, and his possessions, and went their way. When Abram heard that his relative had been taken captive, he didn't hesitate. He armed his 318 trained men, born in his own household, and pursued the enemies as far as Dan. During the night, he divided his forces against them, he and his men, and attacked them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. And he brought back all the possessions, and also his relative Lot with his possessions, and the women and the people. Then the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him at the valley of Shave, that is, the King's Valley. But this story doesn't start here. Its roots reach deep into an ancient land shrouded in mystery, Shinar. Shinar, a name that echoes like thunder across the millennia. This ancient name refers to Sumer, the birthplace of the first kings and the earliest known civilizations. A fertile land where empires were born, ziggurats were built, and the first human writings were etched into clay. Often identified as Babylon itself, Shinar was a center of power and wisdom where, according to ancient traditions, the earliest human empires thrived under the influence of the so-called ancient gods, being said to have taught mankind the arts of science, warfare, and governance. It is within this ancient setting that Amraphel, king of Shinar, appears, marching alongside Tidal, king of nations, Arioch, king of Ellasar, and Chedorlaomer, king of Elam. Together, they formed a terrifying alliance, devastating Sodom and the surrounding cities in a bloody campaign that turned the valley of Siddim into a wasteland, a field of ruins where kings and giants fell side by side. Yet there is an even more astonishing detail, one that changes the entire scope of this ancient war. They fought against colossal beings, creatures so immense and terrifying that official history chose to remain silent about their existence. These giants, mentioned in ancient traditions, were said to have walked beside kings and warriors, leaving footprints as deep as the very foundations of humanity itself. Among the kings who marched in that conflict, one name stands out enigmatically: Amraphel. But who was this mysterious man, really? Some scholars argue that Amraphel may not have been a personal name at all, but rather an ancient Sumerian title. There are theories identifying him with Kintur-Rastu, a legendary ruler of Sumer, whose name could be translated as the Great Man. This hypothesis draws upon the linguistic structure of early Mesopotamian languages. Kintur would correspond to the prefix M found in the Hebrew Amraphel, while Rasta may derive from Rapel, a Semitic term conveying spiritual strength, power, and dominion. If this interpretation is correct, then Amraphel was far more than an ordinary monarch. He was a ruler initiated into forgotten mysteries, a man who may still have had contact with the forbidden knowledge of pre-Diluvian civilizations. His motivation for war, therefore, may have reached far beyond mere politics. It wasn't simply about expanding territory or subduing rebellious peoples. Something hidden was at stake: the ancient knowledge of the Nephilim and the giants, a power said to have been lost since the flood, but which certain ancient kings may have sought to reclaim. Among the great leaders of this alliance, another name rises from the shadows of antiquity: Chedorlaomer, the powerful and feared king of Elam. His dominion encompassed the lands of the Elamites, one of the oldest known peoples descended from Shem, the son of Noah. The territory he ruled corresponds roughly to what we know today as Iran. Yet Chedorlaomer's power stretched beyond mountains and deserts, resonating throughout the Fertile Crescent. In ancient Elamite records, he is mentioned under the title Chedorlaomer, a name that signified power, authority, and reverence, a title commanding respect even among neighboring nations. But Chedorlaomer didn't rule alone. At his side stood Arioch, king of Ellasar, a realm whose precise location remains cloaked in mystery. Some historians place Ellasar in Asia Minor, perhaps in Cappadocia or Antioch, lands marked by cyclopean fortresses and ancient traditions that speak of demigod heroes and kings who walked with the sons of heaven. Others, however, believe Ellasar may have been an even more forgotten kingdom, a lost city that flourished briefly before vanishing beneath the sands of time, taking with it the secrets of its royal lineage. What do all these names have in common? They rise from the depths of history like echoes of a past that refuses to die. Men of flesh and blood, yes, but also pawns in a far greater game where power, knowledge, and the legacy of the ancient gods intertwined with the destiny of humanity. And it was under this intricate web of alliances and hidden ambitions that one of the most mysterious wars ever recorded began, a battle between kings and forgotten titans. Another enigmatic figure within this mighty alliance is Tidal, the mysterious king of nations, mentioned in the Hebrew text as Tidal. Little is known about his origins, yet the meaning surrounding his name alone is enough to spark curiosity. The word goyim, used both in Hebrew and Phoenician, literally means nations or, in a broader sense, peoples. This linguistic peculiarity suggests something extraordinary. Tidal may not have been a traditional monarch limited to a single territory, but rather a ruler commanding a confederation of tribes, a vast coalition of diverse peoples united under one banner. Instead of a fixed empire, he may have led a mobile dominion, a realm of nomadic warriors, tribal chieftains, and clans of many origins, all answering to him as their supreme leader. This interpretation aligns with the conclusions of modern scholars such as David Rohl, who proposes identifying Tidal with Tishal, an ancient Hurrian ruler whose influence stretched across the Zagros Mountains, a strategic region between modern-day Iran and Iraq. If this connection is accurate, the mystery surrounding Tidal deepens. He may have commanded a multicultural and dynamic empire, rising at the crossroads of the great civilizations of antiquity, Sumerian, Elamite, and Akkadian. Thus, viewed through a wider lens, the alliance of the four kings mentioned in Genesis 14 reveals itself as a complex mosaic of cultures and powers. Amraphel, king of Shinar, linked to Sumer, the birthplace of the first cities and the god-kings of Mesopotamia. Arioch, king of Ellasar, possibly connected to Cappadocia, a land of stone fortresses and ancient trade routes in Asia Minor. Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, a Semitic sovereign, descendant of the Elamites, ruling over a territory corresponding to modern Iran. And Tidal, king of nations, the leader who united under his banner scattered tribes of warriors, a multicultural legion of peoples who obeyed his command. In light of this evidence, Tidal may have been far more than a mere military ally, perhaps a commander of forgotten peoples whose authority derived not from royal lineage, but from prestige, strength, and the power to unite rival kingdoms around a single cause, a true king of nations in the most literal and profound sense. And it was under the command of these four rulers, Amraphel, Arioch, Chedorlaomer, and Tidal, that one of the most mysterious episodes of the Old Testament unfolded, a war of epic proportions where humanity faced the impossible. Genesis 14 describes a battle that defies human comprehension. It wasn't merely a territorial dispute, but a war between kings and giants, a confrontation between men and beings of immense power, descendants of obscure lineages reaching back to the era before the flood. According to ancient records, 3 races of giants rose against the coalition of the 4 kings, the Rephaim, the Zuzim, and the Emim. Each race possessed unique traits. Some were said to have bones as dense as bronze, others of such towering stature that no ordinary man could stand beside them. Yet all shared one mark in common: their terrifying strength and their reputation as invincible warriors. These colossal beings were the last remnants of a forgotten world, a world where the boundary between the human and the divine had been shattered, and where the echoes of the ancient rebellion of the Nephilim still haunted the earth. Rephaim, the colossi of Ashtaroth-Karnaim. The first of the titanic races mentioned in the narrative is the Rephaim, described as beings of superhuman proportions, giants of dense flesh and colossal musculature whose height could reach up to 5 meters, over 16 feet. Among the ancient peoples, their very name evoked terror. They were not mere warriors. They were living colossi, pulsing reminders of an age when the limits between the mortal and the divine had been broken. It was in Ashtaroth-Karnaim that the Rephaim faced the armies of the 4 kings. The battle was a scene of pure terror. The ground trembled beneath the weight of the giants, and the clash of blades thundered across the desert. Each strike from a Rephaim could shatter an ordinary man. Yet despite their overwhelming strength, They fell before the strategy and relentless force of the coalition led by Chedorlaomer. This victory marked the first step in a campaign to subdue the lands ruled by these titanic beings. But who were the Rephaim, truly? Ancient traditions offered dark answers. Many scholars and interpreters believe they were direct descendants of the Nephilim, the giants mentioned in Genesis 6, survivors of the flood, remnants of a forbidden lineage that escaped destruction and continued to wander the earth. Others view them as a hybrid race born from ancient unions between humans and celestial beings. Zuzim, the hidden race lost in the shadows of time. The second race mentioned is that of the Zuzim, figures wrapped in even deeper mystery. The Bible reveals almost nothing about them, neither their origins nor their appearance. They are briefly mentioned as inhabitants of the land of Ham, and then they vanish from Scripture as though time itself erased their footprints. Guided by Chedorlaomer, the four kings marched against the Zuzim, and once again the blood of giants soaked the earth. Lost accounts of this war speak of cries that echoed for days, of spears splintering like straw against the monstrous bodies of these beings. And yet they, too, were defeated. Were the Zuzim warriors so fearsome that their very existence had to be erased from human memory? Or perhaps they were the last descendants of a forbidden lineage whose remembrance was deliberately suppressed, preserved only as fragmented echoes within the oldest texts of humankind. Whatever the truth, the Zuzim remain a missing piece of the great puzzle of the pre-Diluvian races, a people buried beneath the sands of oblivion. Emim, the monstrous guardians of the lost lands. Finally comes the third, and perhaps most feared, of the races, the Emim or Emim in Hebrew and Aramaic, a name literally meaning the terrible ones or the monstrous. The very sound of their name made neighboring peoples tremble. Their territory stretched across strategic regions near the very routes through which, centuries later, the Israelites would pass during the Exodus. The Emim were often compared to the Anakim, another legendary race of giants mentioned in Scripture. The Moabites regarded them as kin to the Rephaim, suggesting that all these lineages descended from the same colossal ancestors, the titans of the ancient world. Described as possessing fangs, elongated arms, and devastating strength, the Emim ruled the plains with an almost supernatural presence. No human army dared face them directly, and yet when the coalition of the four kings, led by Chedorlaomer, advanced upon them, even these monstrous guardians fell before the fury and discipline of the allied armies. The Bible offers few details about the aftermath of this war, but its impact is undeniable. The conflict against the 10,000 giants was not merely a territorial conquest. It was a struggle for dominion over a vanishing world, a war to erase the final traces of an age when giants still walked among men. And so, amid blood and ruins, the ancient power of the colossi was silenced. But their legends, those never died. They continue to whisper through the shadows of history, waiting for the day when humanity remembers that once the giants truly lived. The battle was, without question, monumental, a collision between worlds. On one side were the Rephaim, Zuzim, and Emim, creatures of flesh and stone with supernatural muscles, colossi whose mere presence made the earth tremble. On the other side stood the four kings of the earth and their armies, men determined, disciplined, and driven by the conviction that they were facing not merely enemies, but an ancient threat that had to be wiped from the face of the world. Ancient traditions claimed that these giants could reach 4 to 5 meters in height, their strength equal to that of dozens of ordinary warriors. Even so, human spears rose against them, and in a clash that mingled courage with desperation, mankind prevailed. But victory came at a terrible cost. The battlefield became a sea of blood and dust. The plains where the fighting took place remained scarred for centuries, as if the earth itself remembered the weight of the fallen colossi. Thousands of soldiers perished, crushed or torn apart by the titanic creatures. Yet, little by little, the human armies advanced, suffocating the resistance of the giants until the last of them fell. How exactly did the four kings manage to defeat such overwhelming power? Scripture doesn't say. Some believe that divine intervention turned the tide in favor of men. Others suggest that the secret of victory lay in weapons and strategies inherited from ancient civilizations, perhaps even of celestial origin. The fact remains that after that day, the roar of the giants fell silent, and humanity moved forward, never fully understanding what it had truly conquered or destroyed. And now I want to hear from you. Had you ever heard of this forgotten war, this epic clash between men and giants fought in the days of Abraham? What do you think about this story? Leave your comment and share your reflections. This was another chapter of our series exploring the giants of Scripture. If this story stirred your curiosity, check out the other episodes. They'll be available at the end of this video. May God bless you all. See you soon.